Okay, it looks like I am live on YouTube and live on Facebook, and we are good to go. So hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all on this Easter weekend. And I know if you're watching this on the replay, I hope you had a nice Easter weekend. And so, yeah, we are, let me get some things configured here as you guys are ramping up to watch this. Okay, so yes, this is the Ask Coach session, and we are having an amazing stream of people coming in with some questions. So I want to get right to this and ask the first question. Now, this is going to be a little bit longer of an answer because this was a really good question, and I spent a little bit of time going back and forth with the person who, she asked me not to share her name just because she felt a little silly about it. So we will call her Sleepless in Atlanta. So I'm going to go ahead and read the email that she sent to me. Hey, Coach, my husband and I bought a rental property 3 years ago, and everything has gone really smoothly. That is until recently. We bought your book recently and got a lot of good tips from it. Thank you very much. One thing the book didn't address is what happens when tenants fight with each other and what to do about it. The couple we are renting to had a pretty nasty spat, and the woman called me in tears wanting to change the locks. So, not thinking anything of it and feeling badly for her, I called my handyman and had it done right away. What I didn't know is my husband also got a call from the guy resident, asking for the same thing to be done. Fortunately, my husband called me before he went over to do it, so I was able to stop him. Now we are finding ourselves in the middle of a domestic dispute, and we're not sure of the best way to have handled this. And this is signed by Sleepless in Atlanta. Okay, so good morning, Vanessa. Thank you for saying good morning. Happy Easter to you. So what to do with this? How to handle this situation? So here, there's a lot of things going on here that, first of all, Sleepless, I hope that you've definitely learned what you've done. Now you're in the middle of this thing and you're not really sure where to go, right? And unfortunately, I'm going to give you an answer that may not make any sense to you, but you've got to get your attorney involved in this, because you've got yourself in a situation now where you have effectively done what's called a constructive eviction of the husband, or of the guy. I don't know if they're married, but of the guy, right? And constructive eviction is basically where you've constructively evicted him. You've basically not given him access to the property anymore. So now it would be a little different if, maybe he has a restraining order or anything along those lines, but you didn't mention anything like that in our conversation. So basically you have to avoid constructive eviction. Now, everything I do, you guys know how I feel about checklists, and really let's go back to what should have happened earlier on, because what you've effectively done right now is constructively evicted him. I would say right now, get him a key and let the woman know that you're going to have to give him a key. That way there's no, and if he's not welcome at the property, or if there's abuse going on or anything like that, she has to take ownership of that. You cannot take ownership of that for her. And trust me, I've been down that road where you're feeling bad. I've had, females call me where they're in tears and they want me to be the hero, and you insert yourself into the drama triangle, and which is in the book. I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about there. But now you're the hero, and you've just now they've got a common enemy, right? The man and the woman now have a common enemy in you, because they can gang up on you. So what I would suggest is get yourself out of that situation where you're not in between them at all. You need to get him access to that property. Now, if he doesn't want to stay there, that's fine. And you have to determine if you want to remove him from the lease and everything else. And that's what I want to talk about now. So here's what I would have done. First and foremost, the female calls you and says, I'm really upset. He walked out on me. I need to change the locks right away. I'm fearful for my safety, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's great. Here's what we need to do. I'm really sorry that that happened. I feel for you. Here's what needs to happen, though. In order to remove him from the lease, I need to make sure, and this is where your checklist should come into play. I need to make sure that you have enough income to cover this property by yourself, right? You basically need to underwrite her now and make sure that she's going to do it. Now, you don't have this conversation right at that moment. You let her be emotional in that moment, but just basically say, well, look, I can't just take someone off the lease. Okay. There has to be, if he wants to be removed from the lease and you're okay with it and I'm okay with it, and I just need to make sure that you can, you can cover all the bills. No problem. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. I do charge for this though. I charge for a charge a fee anytime I have to modify the lease for that. If I'm taking someone off, putting someone on, because that will drive you absolutely bananas with, oh, hey, we I've got a cousin who's going to live here, for a while, and then the cousin doesn't work out, and all you're doing is printing paper and signing leases, and that just sucks. So I do charge a fee for that, and I would highly encourage you to do that as well for that purpose. Because every time you modify a lease, it's your time, right? You have to take time to do that. Okay, so let's look at Jack. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Sherry Luchmeyer, nice to see you. So what would be on that checklist in terms of how I would remove them from the lease? Okay, so first and foremost, I would make sure, okay, look, I can't just take them off the lease. there has to be a mutual rescission. I would basically sign a new lease, which would only have the female on there, or the male, or whoever wants to stay. And then that basically voids the previous lease. They're not responsible for anything else. And then the new lease takes place and moves forward. Okay, so that's what I would do if I was going to do that. But before I did that, I would want to make sure that the new person, or the person that was staying, has the financial wherewithal to afford the place on their own. If they can't afford the place on their own, then what's the point of setting them up to fail? Okay, you have to make sure before you allow someone to sign on a lease by themselves and removing someone else off the lease, that you want to make sure that they're going to have the money to do that, right? That doesn't make sense to set them up to fail. So I would make sure of that. Absolutely. Now, the question is, who should pay for the locks to be changed? I think the resident should, because if you're taking the old one off the lease, right, and the locks are being changed at their request, I would absolutely do that. Now, there are laws out there, such as the Violence Against Women Act, that you have to be careful of if there's a domestic dispute or anything along those lines. If there's actual abuse going on, you don't want to get in the middle of that, but you also need to make sure that everybody's kept safe. So that's why I would say make sure that you're getting in front of an attorney, so you don't violate anything unintentionally, and you don't just say, well, your problem, I'm not dealing with it, you guys work it out. So there's lots of components going on here, and I know I covered a couple different things, but you got yourself into a pickle there, Sleepless in Atlanta. And I understand, because this is a human business, right? You feel badly, you want to help people, but unfortunately this is this is the things that you have to deal with. Okay, so Vanessa's asking a question. Very good. So what if she comes with a proof of protection order against him who has to vacate? Okay, so that's a great question. That's what I was just relating to in terms of the Violence Against Women Act. But ironically enough, I think it also goes against, it's for men too. So if a man is in an abusive situation, then it works against whoever the abuser is, right? But in this particular case, and again, you have to understand what the particular laws are in your state and in your area. But generally, what I would say is the person who has the protective order would have to vacate, but they still have to have access to their things. You can't deny them. You, as the landlord, cannot deny access to their things. So, and it's not up to you to enforce the law. If someone's going to go and violate a protective order, that's not for you to enforce. That's for the police. So, in that particular case, the locks can be changed, and as long as they're aware of it. Now, if you're going to be okay with removing them from the lease, that's fine. But here's the problem: if the person who is filing the protective order doesn't feel safe, and because of the domestic abuse situation, and again, this is why it's important for you to talk to an attorney. They can't, if they want to move out of the property, they can't be held accountable for the rest of the term of the lease. So that's why it's important for you to understand that, like, say you've got a wife being physically abused and the children are there, and she gets a protective order, and then she's like, look, I can't stay here. I don't feel safe. I need to go. according to what the VAWA is saying, you cannot hold them accountable to that. And that's good practice anyway. I mean, you shouldn't be holding them accountable to that anyway, right? I mean, that's kind of a douchebag move. So I would say do the right thing and make sure that they're not that they are safe, and then you can worry about getting the property re-rented to someone else. Okay, so that's all I have for today. I know I'm trying to keep these somewhat within 10 to 15 minutes. So this is one big heavy question that we had about someone renting to someone, and then the locks, the tenants were asking for the locks to be changed. The main thing is try to keep it clinical. Yes, this is a people business, but you want to be understanding about it. But just do your best to make sure that you are not getting in the middle of a domestic situation, because that is not a good place to be. Okay. All right. You have a great rest of your Easter weekend, and take good care. And remember, if you're not placing a value on your free time, someone else will. Take good care. See you.